What's going on? Hope all is well. I wanted to talk about the book of Judges in the Bible. I've been reading the book of Judges, and it's a very fascinating book. During this book, God is raising up different judges, different leaders. During that time, they didn't have kings, so they had judges. They were the overall leader of Israel during different periods of time. And God would raise up different judges during different times because of Israel's disobedience. They needed a leader. They needed a leader during their times of disobedience to be able to lead them, to guide them, to be able to lead them out of trouble, lead them in wars. And I find it fascinating because God used all different type of men from different backgrounds, men who we would look at as flawed men who had a lot of different flaws, who were weak, who in society may have been looked at like a nobody, or people who did not have the ability to lead, but God still used them. And I was thinking about in Judges chapter 6, starting with a judge named Gideon. And, God called him to lead Israel. God called him a mighty man of valor. And when God told him that, he was like, who, me? Essentially, you're going to use me? I don't believe it. I'm a person who's the weakest in my family. I come from the weakest family here. There's no way that you can use me. And, God had to build him up. God had to let him know, yeah, I'm going to use you. You are a mighty man. And, Gideon didn't see himself that way, but God did. And God was able to use Gideon to lead a small army to beat a big army. And I was thinking about, how do we see ourselves? That's one thing I got from this story. How do we see ourselves? Do we see ourselves as, strong men of valor, or do we see ourselves as weak? And a lot of men see themselves not in the light that God sees them. And it's so very important to do a checkup from the neck up, meaning analyze yourself. And we have to know that if you are here, if you are breathing, God has something for you. What's for me may be different from your purpose in life. And everyone has a different purpose, and everyone has a different gift. But God, gave you that purpose. He gave you your gifts, and he wants to use them, not for yourself, but for the kingdom of God. So it's very important to analyze yourself and think about, how do I look at myself? Because Gideon, he looked at himself as a weak man, not a mighty man of valor, but just a regular, ordinary, weak man. And I'm not asking you or telling you to just look at yourself as, God's gift to the world, think you're better than someone, essentially. But God does have all of us here for a reason. And we have to know that. We have to walk in that. And we have to walk in our purpose each day as men. Because whatever God has for you, he wants to use that to be able to do something positive. He wants to use that to be able to make a difference in this world and be able to increase his kingdom, to be able to make a difference in the kingdom, to be able to spread his word, to be able to do positive things. But you must look at yourself in the way that he sees you. Because I think about a lot of people die and they have so much that they left on the table. They have so much talent. They have their gifts that they never activated because of their thinking, because of not believing God, because of not trusting God, and because of the way that they view themselves. So it's very important to analyze yourself, like I stated, and know that God sees you as a mighty man of valor. He sees you as someone he can use. But it's all about stepping into it, believing, and stepping out your comfort zone and trusting, essentially. But I want you guys to read, starting in the book of Judges, chapter 6, and you'll read this wonderful story about Gideon and how God used him. God used someone who was a mighty man of valor, who thought less of himself, but God still used him. And it was very important, because what if he didn't step into his, God-given purpose? What if he didn't listen to God and just kept going on with his life? He kept just, staying in a comfort zone, essentially. Then if he did that, I believe God would have used someone else to be able to accomplish his mission. But Gideon would have lived an ordinary life and would have been lacking, essentially, because he didn't really do what God wanted him to do. So it's very important to look at yourself in a positive light and know that God has you here for a reason. And look at yourself as a mighty man of valor. Look at yourself as valuable, and look at yourself as having purpose and walking in that purpose each day, not for your glory, but for the glory of God. So just want to share the message with you guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. I want you guys to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I will talk to you guys soon. Peace.